Hi, everybody. This is Brass Check, and I'm recording this on September 12th, 2025 at 7:25 in the morning. Been up for hours. I guess it's time for a personal visit. Working on the book. You can actually get the first two parts in PDF. It's available right now. It is, you'll see, it's amazing. And there's also a way to get a signed copy, and we anticipate this will be ready for distribution on October 15th, 2025. Okay, wow, lots of news, lots of news. Charlie Kirk. Um, let's be clinical about this. That was the setup. That is I've never seen anything so insane in my life. I mean, he was in a fishbowl, and if you wanted to set somebody up to shoot somebody from a long range rifle, they put him in the exact, absolutely perfect setting. And of course, they did the same thing with Trump a while back in Pennsylvania, if you remember that. That was an absurd security situation. Now, with somebody like Charlie Kirk, you don't necessarily expect there to be rooftop snipers. However, he had six security people with him, and nobody could look at the roof. People in the crowd saw that there was someone on the roof, but his own people didn't notice that. And then we have the Keystone Cops of the campus security. And I guess everybody's seen the video of somebody jumping off the roof and running away. Really? I mean, wow. Wow. And then they find a rifle in the woods on a blanket with extra rounds and some nonsense that somebody put a message in the rifle or carved it on the bullets. I mean, this is just nuts. Completely nuts. And so I mean, it's beyond comprehension. It's so stupid. But what do you expect from our great law enforcement people? This is the quality work you get from these guys. And anyway, so if you don't know who Charlie Kirk was, like him or not like him, he was one of the most influential people in the United States. And I'll tell you why that is. He was extremely influential among conservative young people. And that's like teens, preteens, tweens, whatever you call them, um, into the 20s. That's the next generation. Those people came out and voted in large numbers, those that were allowed to vote. And they helped turn the tide for the guy that's in the White House now. So you remove Charlie Kirk from the picture, and there might have been a whole lot less votes for Trump. So this is not some random guy. This was a person of high significance, and they took him out. And one question people aren't asking is who created Charlie Kirk in the first place? There ain't no young kid that puts together that kind of an organization that fast or early in life. Okay, he had people behind the scenes that were setting things up for him, and he was very good at what he did. Um, but and that's bizarre that nobody talks about that. Who was behind Charlie Clark? Excuse me, Charlie Kirk, and whoever was behind him decided that it was time for him to go. Why? He was making noises that perhaps Israel wasn't 100% kosher and that maybe he could understand, as many people can, going after the Hamas people. But it's obvious that's not that's not the plan. The plan is to kill every Palestinian or drive them out of the country. They're happy to do either. If they leave, I guess they won't kill them. But if they don't leave, they will kill them. I mean, it's so. I mean, how much more obvious does it have to be? Um, and he was starting to talk about that. I cannot begin to describe the cataclysmic problem that would create for the genocide team were that to happen, were he to become outspoken about that. Because again, you know, millions, if not tens of millions, of young people look up to him and take their lead from him. And in the United States, the only thing that's holding the genocide together are idiots like Ted Cruz, um, and then satanic agents like Rabbi Shmuley. What a joke that guy is. And the young Christian Zionist people who think that if they kill everybody in the Middle East, Jesus will come back. Well, that's a pretty thin thread, and it's getting frayed. And young people, to their credit, are not buyers of bullshit. Um, and on the Christian side, on the conservative side, uh, there's rumblings. And all you needed was one guy like Charlie Kirk to come out and make that an issue, and Israel's in deep shit. So, who killed Charlie Kirk? Let us also notice that at the very same time that Charlie Kirk got shot, killed, Israel decided they were going to bomb Qatar. Well, this is interesting. Like everybody's cool with them bombing Syria. Remember, Syria and Iran are, and you know they're the what do they call them? The axis of evil, right? Ridiculous to ever to call Syria that, but they somehow got linked into that, and we know who did that, right? The neocons slash Zionists. So it's okay to kill people. 400,000 people killed in Syria, by the way. Does anybody even remember? That's a lot of people. And that went down smooth, right? Nobody's complaining. We didn't see a whole lot of podcasts about that. 400,000 people killed in Syria. And who paid the bills? US behind the scenes and places like Qatar, our good ally. Or are they? Because now apparently it's okay for the mad dogs in Israel to start bombing Qatar and killing civilians. And no accident. They've said we're going to do it again. We're going to do it anywhere. We might even do it in the United States. They didn't say that, but that's the next step. That's the next step. Um, so at the very same time that this Qatar thing's going down, that's when they choose to kill somebody chooses to kill Charlie Kirk. And it all happened on the anniversary of 9/11. Now, got an interesting story to tell you. You know my film, Why Are These Israelis Dancing? That film's 2 years old. And everybody in the podcast sphere has been sent a copy. Some people have had me on small shows, but even people that have had me on for other things will not touch that. Will not touch that. How close are we to Americans realizing the following facts? Who benefited from 9/11? US certainly didn't. Israel did massively, massively. They got us geared up to take out one of their enemies, Iraq, at our own expense, right? They turned America into it's always been a police state, but a really unhinged police state, thereby sort of mirroring what it's like to be a Palestinian. It's obviously a million times worse to be a Palestinian in the West Bank, going through security checks every day of the week just to go buy a loaf of bread or go to your job. I mean, imagine doing an air. And I mean, nobody talks about this, but imagine doing airline level security, but worse, just going to work, to and from work every day, or going to see your grandma because she's on another side of the West Bank. That's life for the Palestinians. So Israel, or whoever did 9/11, whoever was involved in 9/11, brought that to the United States. And by the way, a whole lot of Zionists made a ton of money on the new security state. Shartok or Chertoff, whatever his name is, same name really, it's just gets spelled differently. Chertoff. Zionist to the bone. He's the guy that came up with the scatter ray, whatever it is, detection system in the airports that you have to go through, and you gotta put your. I don't do it. I've never done it. Will never do it. But everybody hands up like you're a violent criminal just to get on the plane. And who was behind that? Who made the money from it? Share Talk. Whatever. I don't even care what his name is, but you know who I'm talking about. We made a film about that a long time ago. Um, and there, you ever heard of a fusion center, a Homeland Security fusion center? These black boxes that are all these black box buildings that are all over the place. Um, guess who made the money off those? Guess how new government buildings are made. Okay. They guarantee a lease payment. And so the investors can go in and know in advance, hey, if we put 10 million into this thing, we're going to get, a million a year forever. And we got a tenant that's never leaving, that's always going to pay their rent. And guess who got those deals? All Zionist investors. Yeah, nobody's ever told you that. But that's a fact. Look into it. If we have any journalists out there, do we have any real journalists out there? Um, Look into that little game. Okay. Meanwhile, let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein nonstop and say nothing. I'm a little exasperated, as you can imagine, with this stuff on the podcast sphere. Now, however, some good podcast sphere, but strange podcast sphere news. Podcast sphere news. Good but strange. So, wrote the book, JFK and RFK's Secret Battle Against Zionist Extremism. Hoped it would take off. And it is. It's a slow burn, but it's happening. I know from an insider who called me to let me know all of the big name um, assassination um, scholars, researchers know about this book. They've all got it now. They've read it. So they can't say, I didn't know. Nobody told me. Or there's no evidence. Now there's plenty of evidence. And those of you that have the book know. I'm not saying Israel did it. I'm saying they were surely part of the mix. And I've gotten on to some podcasts with that. And it's kind of interesting but strange story. I was on the Katie Halper show, and she took one clip, just only one. Now you know her. Sometimes she'll do 4, 5, 6, 7 clips from a long program. My case, she only took one. Okay, take what you get. Over 900,000 views. It is the second most viewed video of her entire career. Do you think? And I do love Katie. I think she's phenomenal. Do you think she'd cut another clip or two and put it out there? No, didn't happen. Don't know why. Um, I'll name somebody else who I think the world of. I think the world of this person, Sabby Sabs. I've wrote her 3 times about my film. Why are these Israelis dancing? I've been on her show. She's let me lay out some really serious facts on her show. She ain't even acknowledging the emails I'm sending her on this subject. So now apparently Tucker Carlson did some multi-part series that has been withdrawn. Maybe it's going to maybe because of the Charlie Kirk situation. Maybe it will come back. And there's suggestions that he's willing to say we've got to look at Israeli participation in 9/11. But this is I mean so here I want to bring this full circle. They clearly set up Kirk to be murdered. I mean you could not create a simpler setup. He's in a bowl and there's all lots, not just one roof, but lots and lots of roofs. And then make sure you have the Keystone cops as security. Um, I mean, can you imagine shooting somebody and then just jumping off the back of the? I mean, if that is the guy, it probably isn't. He's probably that's another. I mean, did you see the first guys they arrested? Some old, I'm old, some old dude on all fours, creating a fuss, saying I will not, First Amendment or whatever. I mean, they thought that guy did it. I mean, it's so stupid, so freaking stupid. Um, the only, anyway, I'm going to try to restrain myself. So anyway, that happened. Israel has now declared, hey, we're going to kill anybody, anywhere, anytime. By the way, Obama, Barack Obama got that one started. He killed an American citizen in Yemen based on nothing. All right, so the guy had an opinion. He had an unpopular opinion. He was an American citizen. He was in Yemen living there, but he's an American citizen. Killed him, I think his son too, with a drone strike. Right? We did a video, I think, we're going to do it soon, called Obama the Drone King. He loved killing people with drones. He loved terrorizing civilians with drones. He was the innovator. He was the pioneer of that. These poor people in Afghanistan and other places, they're going about their business and they see a drone in the air and they know what that means, that they may be killed like that. Right? You go to a wedding, right? Maybe there's maybe one guy who's a terrorist, and it's okay to kill everybody in the wedding, the bride, the groom, the little kids, the grandmothers, the grandfathers. It's okay. We started that. We started that. And of course, we continue to fuel and fund Israel. One phone call and the genocide's over. They need fuel every day. They need weapons every day. They need electronic surveillance from the UK. They're flying their spy planes over Gaza all the time, picking up electronic surveillance and sending it to Israel. We stop that, and it stops. So when you see the murder and the mayhem and the slaughter in Gaza, this is a joint U.S. UK project that happens to be using a band of psychopaths known as Zionist Israelis, which apparently 80% of Israelis are fine with the murder of children. It doesn't bother them at all. Starvation, good, they say. This is the kind of people they are, and we're funding it. Now, Scott Ritter, finally, I've been waiting for somebody to state the obvious. You ever heard of this old saying, give them enough rope to hang themselves? I think, and he mentioned it yesterday. I saw it. Finally, somebody said it. I'll go in. He didn't go into it. I'll go into it in depth right now. Um, Pretty clear to me. Israel is. I mean, those people are despicable. I mean, they need to go. Right, just like the Nazis needed to go. Right. However, they are being set up. Okay. How do I explain this? It shouldn't be complicated. If you're a bad guy, I mean, I've used this analogy before. And how did the Zionists end up in Israel in the first place? Well, obviously the Rothschilds did it. They paid for it, right? The Balfour Declaration, that, by the way, which happened in the middle of World War I. Nobody ever talks about that, and that's significant. That's very significant. Very few people realize World War I was a war over oil. And this thing that's going on in Gaza is a war over oil and natural gas. Okay. And the Zionist maniacs, and I have a friend, a true Holocaust survivor, not someone that just was alive during the Holocaust and got away, someone that was in a camp as a child. Vera Sharav, I'll mention her name, co-authored a book with her on this Nuremberg Code. She's invited me to be in one of her books. And what she said to me is, nobody ever wanted to go to Israel. The only people that go to Israel are the crazy Brooklyn, Zionist zealots and people in the Soviet Union that wanted to get the hell out of there and go to some place that was warmer and nicer. No sane person moves to Israel. Those are the words. She didn't. Now that's what she said. Now I'm going to add to that. The scum of the earth went to Israel and settled in Israel. Okay, nobody ever talks about that. But that's who went to Israel. Everybody else went to Brooklyn. I love the. I can say this. I have Jewish people in my family. 40% of the next generation of my family is Jewish. So I can say this. I'm not Jewish. Your mom's got to be Jewish. My mom wasn't. Um, uh, but when they always say, "Oh, there's no safe place for the," this is Zionist bullshit. There's no safe place for Jews on earth. How about the Upper West Side of Manhattan? How about Miami? How about Chicago? How about L.A.? San Francisco? New Orleans? I mean, there's plenty of safe places, plenty of very pleasant, nice, affluent, safe places on this earth for Jewish people to live. London, Paris, Berlin. Did you know before October 7th, before October 7th, young progressive Israeli people were moving to Berlin? Okay? So this nonsense, oh, we're not safe anywhere on the earth. We need Israel. It's a load of shit. It's a load of shit. But anyway, let's get back to who put who put these maniacs in Palestine in the first place, and that would be the Rothschilds. Now, whether they're Jewish or Tibetan or Bolivian, it doesn't matter. They're just a huge banking group who also happens to be in the oil business. You ever heard of Shell Oil? Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, two different companies. Royal Dutch moved oil from Indonesia. There used to be a lot of oil in Indonesia. There may still may be, just maybe they may be hiding it right now. They moved a lot of oil from Indonesia. Okay, and then that's Royal Dutch. Shell is the company that invented the oil tanker. Even the Rockefellers couldn't figure that one out, but it was Shell that figured out what an oil tanker was. And who funded Shell? The Rothschilds. They're in the oil business deep. And then when Shell and people need to know this. I don't know why people don't know this. Everybody knows, Washington cut down the cherry tree. Nobody knows the history of the corporations that rule us. We don't even know the basic history. So let's get into the basic history. Royal Dutch Shell. I mean, excuse me, Royal Dutch and Shell. Royal Dutch Shell. Okay, and we already mentioned that the uh, the, the the Rothschilds owned were a big they controlled the Shell company. They were also big developers of, I don't know how to pronounce this, Baku, Baku, huge oil field in southern Russia, massive, like Saudi Arabia level. Okay, the Rothschilds developed that. Okay, and they're oil people. In addition to being bank, just like the Rockefellers are oil people. They're banking people. They're mining people. They're industrial people. They're political corruption people, and that's what the Rothschilds are too. They're just the European version. So to understand World War One, they knew every. So we used to run on coal. Now we run on gasoline and diesel. There was a transition, and the transition started, with these brilliant people inventing the automobile, right? And then the navies of the world looked at that and said, "Wow, this is a much better fuel for so many reasons than coal." You don't need men in the in the engine room shoveling coal all day, right? For one thing. But they also looked around and said, "We don't have much coal. I mean, we don't have much oil. UK did. We don't have much oil." And Germany said the same thing. There's a lot of oil in Romania, and that Romanian oil fueled the Nazis. But the Germans didn't have much oil. The world, even even forget the Nazis, just pre-Nazi Germany didn't have much oil. But everybody knew there was a lot of oil in Iraq. And Iraq was controlled by who during World War One? It was controlled by the Ottomans. And who were the allies of the Germans in World War One? The Ottomans. So the Germans had the money and the intelligence and the technology and the capital and all that to develop the Iraqi oil fields. You following me? I hope I'm not losing anybody here. Because it was under Ottoman control. And they were building a railroad from Berlin to Baghdad. Look it up. Why were they doing that? Because they wanted to go and have a tourist visit to the desert, where it's 120 degrees in January and humid. No, they wanted the oil. That was what was going on before World War One. And guess where the glitch was in that railway line? No problem getting from Germany, you know, this way, and everything was no problem going from Iraq, all the way through Turkey, which was Ottoman too. The holdup was Serbia. You ever heard of Serbia? If you might remember from school that the World War One started when Archduke Ferdinand, or whatever his name was, got shot. Where? In Serbia. And what happened after the Archduke got shot? Oh, well, the Austrian Empire invaded who? Serbia. And who was cheering the justifiable invasion? The Germans. They said to their friends in Austria, "Go for it." Does it make sense now? Serbia was blocking the railway between Baghdad and Berlin, and Germany wanted that oil, and had all they needed was a train line, and they would have had it. Meanwhile, you have England looking on enviously at Germany, and Germany was way ahead of England pre World War One, way ahead technologically, economically, financially, intellectually, uh, every way you could imagine. I mean, until it self-destructed multiple times, and now it's doing it again. Um, they're just smart. They're smart. They work hard, and they're diligent. You get results. So they were kicking England's ass financially, and the British were looking at that, going, "We don't like this." And then they were also thinking, "We want that oil too. We want that oil too." And who ended up with the oil when once we bled Germany dry during World War One, um, using the bodies of French and English troops and then later American troops? Who ended up with the Iraqi oil fields? Oh, that would be England. In the middle of all this, we had the famous Balfour Declaration when a Rothschild agent went around and created a letter and said, "We, the Jewish loving elite of the UK," which is insane if anybody knows the reality, "we believe the Jews should have their own homeland in Palestine." And guess who was the biggest Zionist of all time? Winston Churchill. Guess who organized the transformation of the British war fleet from coal to diesel? That would be Winston Churchill. Okay, World War One was about oil. Putting Zionists in Palestine was about protecting the um, Suez Canal, and it was about oil. Okay, because UK, I mean, it's racist now. You can't imagine what it was like 110 years ago. Among the elite people, are you kidding? And their idea was we got to have white people. We may not like them, we may not, want them in our houses, in our homes, uh, but we want white people in that part of the world who we can call on, who we control. So that's the Rothschild part of this, okay? And then the Rockefeller part of this is, you know, I'm sort of going. I hope people can follow this. Um, and it's getting late here. Do I want to go into? Yeah, I should. So the world runs on oil, okay? All this social media, digital AI bullshit. We could lose that tomorrow, and we'd get over it in about a month. We lose oil and natural gas, and in 3 days, we're all losing our minds and starting to go hungry, right? So, and we don't control those resources. Think about that. The things that unless you're living on a homestead and you've got your own chickens and some goats and you're canning and which is doable, kind of a full-time job for one or two people, but it's doable. But unless you're that, and you're walking, and you got a horses that reproduce, so you can get colts, and unless you are living in that situation, me, we're all under the thumb of these people, and we don't control them; they control us. That's the sort of the bottom line here. Okay, and that all took place under the Rockefellers on the U.S. side, and through various scandalous criminal activity, which was determined to be criminal by court rulings later after the fact. They picked up 90% of the US's entire refining capacity and 90% of all the pipelines. And, oil is useless unless you have a way to get it to a refiner and a way to get it refined. And while it is very nice to own oil wells, you're basically selling the production of your well to a refiner. Okay, you're like a farmer growing wheat, and it's somebody else that turns it into, pancake batter or whatever, at 100 times or 10 times the value. And that's the same chain in the oil world. It's like, yeah, oil is valuable. Give me a few oil wells, I will not complain, but it's super valuable after it's gone through a refinery process. So the refiners are the guys that really control things. So if you, and especially if you have a monopoly, a massive 90% monopoly, you call the tune. Um, Huey Long, I remember that guy from Louisiana. One of the reasons he got shot was he was a vocal opponent of the Rockefeller cartel, outspoken. And the reason he was so pissed off was he had an oil well. And the Rockefellers, before he was who he became, said, "We're not going to take your oil. We're not going to refine it." So oil, like having an oil well and not having a relationship with transport and a refiner, is like having a box of sand. It's worthless. So the guys that control the refineries control the game. Okay, makes sense so far. Um, the other thing, when you also control retail, so they own everything. They own the oil. Now they own the oil in the ground. This is something they acquired later. Then they started out by owning all the refineries, and they also very early on, at the same time, they were getting all the pipelines and the transport, and they controlled transport, they controlled refining. Then they also controlled at the very same time wholesale and retail distribution. Okay, does everybody know that Shell and Exxon and not Shell, Exxon and Mobil and Chevron and like Sinclair and 10,000 other oil companies that exist today were all once one company, Standard Oil? Maybe people don't know that. The whole game was owned by one guy or one cartel. The whole game. And then they broke it up on paper, but they still control. They still, I mean, they didn't change anything. They just created a lot of smaller companies. Exxon Mobil's not small, um, but that's the way it went down. So remember, let's just take this in. Without the oil and gas, this lifestyle we have is gone fast. Like days, it's gone. Like supermarket shelves empty. If it's the winter, you're freezing. If it's the summer, you're not getting air conditioning. You're not getting to work. You're not getting to school. You're not getting, I mean, like the whole world stops. And one entity basically controls it all. That's our real government. I mean, all these clowns in Washington and the state capitals, they are absolute clowns. And they have been under the thumb of this energy cartel for over 100 years. And now, so how do the Israelis fit in? Okay, I told you on the other side of the ocean, it's the Rothschilds. By the way, the Rockefellers and Rothschilds are like this, best buddies, best buddies. Lots of joint ventures. There was a very close relationship between David Rockefeller and one of the senior people in the Rothschild family. So, and it's so weird that people talk about Rothschilds and they never talk about Rockefellers. It's like, where's the? Does anybody know anything anymore about anything? All right, so we now have through the Rothschild wing of this monster. Um, the Zionists were put into Palestine to help protect the Suez Canal, which they actually did they tried in the 1950s. They were called up. Nasser in Egypt said, "I want that canal back," And, England couldn't really invade Egypt. That wouldn't look too good. And France couldn't do it. So they waited a few months, and then there was some pretense. And next thing you know, Israel's attacking Egypt. Right. And then the heroic French and English came to separate the two warring parties. Thank God, Eisenhower, in his one intelligent decision that he ever made, he said, "We're not getting involved in this. We're not helping. If Nasser wants the canal that runs to his own country, I guess it's his." That didn't go down too well in Rothschild land. By the way, another point, really important, fundamental. And anytime anybody talks about Palestine or anything in the Middle East, you have to realize this. If you want to rule the world, if you want to control the world, you have to control the Middle East. Partially because of the oil, but primarily because of just where it is. Here's Europe, here's Asia. The whole thing works on trade between Europe and Asia. Here's the Middle East. Even though we live in a digital world, stuff has to be on a boat or a train or trucks or whatever. Now we have some planes, of course, but a lot of stuff you can't fly crude oil on a plane, right? Um, it's got to go through there. It's very valuable land, and you could go around Africa, of course, and a lot of ships are, by the way. If you're not friendly to Yemen, your ships are going around the Horn of Africa. I I love it. Those are true men down there in Yemen. True men. Um, Not many of those left in this world, fighting on behalf of the weak and the oppressed. I don't know how they're doing it. I can't logistically wrap my mind around how the hell they're doing it, but they're doing it. And I don't know if you noticed, but, you know, Trump was rattling his saber, and the Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis, started hitting a few U.S. warships. And all of a sudden, Trump's like, "We're at peace. You want to hit Israel? Go ahead. Don't hit us, and we won't hit you." Little country, little country, the only country fighting on behalf of the people in Palestine. But in any event, you got to control. If you want to control the world, and these guys do, you have to control the Middle East. That's why, and there's oil there, which helps a lot. That's why we had the Balfour Declaration. That's why it occurred in the middle of World War One, and that's why the Rothschilds, the big money people who have big interests in banking and energy, that's why they put the psycho Zionists in place. They've been psycho since the day they arrived. They were killing British policemen and troops on a daily basis down there in the 30s, bombing trains, bombing bridges, um, bombing the hotel King David, killing Jewish people in that hotel. They've never been anything but criminals. The Nakba, I'm sure you've heard of that by now. They went through and they massacred villages. Why did they do that? To let the other villagers down the road know, here's what happens if you don't pack up and leave right now. What can you imagine? What would drive you to load your car with whatever you could fill it with and drive away from your home? What would do that? Maybe if people were murdered in the next in the next town, and you knew they were coming to you next. That's why 800,000 people got up and left their homes. So this has been a criminal organization forever, put in place by our, you know, lords and masters, the energy banking cartel. Okay, but now let's drill down where we are now. Scott Ritter pointed out, finally, somebody got a clue, that Israel is, in addition to the atrocities, the unspeakable daily atrocities that they're engaged in Gaza and the West Bank too. They're also killing themselves, right? Now, there's two ways to look at this. This could be a Tiananmen Square situation. Everyone of a certain age remembers Tiananmen Square. Here's the problem now. We got a lot of people that are like, they don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about Tiananmen Square, where they were 5 years old during 9/11. It's like, yeah, how do I explain this stuff to you guys? But in any event, I'm just assuming you know what Tiananmen Square is. If not, look it up. That was an atrocity. There were peaceful people protesting for what? Democracy in Tiananmen Square. And after a certain point, the guys that were running China said, this has got to stop." And they brought in a bunch of troops from outside Beijing, guys that had never been to a big city in their lives. This is how it's always done. In case you wonder, you get people from somewhere else, you sequester them, you fill their heads with all kinds of bullshit about who's in that square and what their intentions are and what they're doing and how dangerous they are, and you indoctrinate. Basically, you don't just send the troops in there. By the way, they could not. The reason they had to do that, they could not get Beijing-based military to go in and do the job. We're not going to go in and mess with those people. We kind of like what they're doing. So they brought the yokels, the guys that out in the countryside that just didn't know, never been to a big city before, sequestered them, indoctrinated them for several weeks. When they felt the guys' heads was in the right place, they set them loose and they murdered who knows how many people, innocent people, blood. There was the whole place was soaked with blood. They ran over people with tanks, the whole bit, right? And the world was horrified. And 3 years later, everybody was back to normal, doing business with China. That was that was their kickoff. They were still a poor country back then. They're rich now, in case you didn't notice. A lot of people haven't. I don't know how many people are aware that like 90% of all our must-have materials for building all our fancy weapons, uh, they're all sourced from China now. Even things like magnets. Can you believe that the United States lost the ability to create industrial scale magnets? You can't make a missile without magnets, and we can't make them. How's that going to work out? I mean, the idiocy of these people is beyond belief. But that's another issue. So this is either going to go Tiananmen Square, where this massacre is going to occur, and then in a number of years, people are going to just forget, and it's back to business as usual. And I'm going to talk about what business as usual is going to mean in Israel. Or the powers that be have decided, hey, remember that Balfour Declaration? Remember all those Zionists we helped move to Israel and arm and use as our little gangster hitmen in the Middle East? We're kind of done with them. We're kind of done with them. And we can't kill them ourselves. So why don't we give them rope to hang themselves with? Right? When they get completely crazy and decide to commit one of maybe the greatest atrocity. I mean, one of the greatest atrocities in human history. Um, but then again, 400,000 people killed in Syria. Nobody lost a minute's sleep over it, right? So I don't know. But anyway, it's a very public atrocity, and it's horrific. Um, maybe we'll help them. Maybe we'll just send them all the arms they need to do that. Let them knock themselves out. Let them just waste and destroy their generation of young men, because nobody cares really at that level, at the high level. They don't care about young men. There's always more where they came from. Let them destroy their country. Let them destroy their reputation for the next 1,000 years, because we're done with them. That's another way. That's what Scott Ritter is finally getting around to suggesting. So it's either one or the other. It's either well, it's not. I mean, either they're going to get away with it, and it will be Tiananmen Square, or it's going to be we're setting them up to, and we're not even going to destroy them, just as we're not personally killing the Palestinians. We're just giving the guns and the ammunition and the targeting information to the killers, right? But everybody's looking at Israel going, look what Israel's doing. No, 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 no. US and UK is doing it, using Israel to do it, right? And just as we're doing that, this is one way to look at the situation. We're done with Israel, but we're not going to wipe them out personally. We're going to help them make themselves so despicable that eventually the rest of the world, maybe starting with Qatar um, and Saudi Arabia and Turkey and maybe Iran. Well, Iran for sure. Um, and maybe Russia and China will pile. Who knows? But a situation is being created whereby somebody else, just as somebody else is doing the dirty work of eliminating the Palestinians in Gaza, um, somebody else is being set up to do the dirty work of maybe eliminating Israel. I mean, Scott Ritter said it, so I guess I can say it now. I mean, I've been saying it forever, but now I can talk about it at length. Um, Now, what's the end game? Have anybody ever thought about that? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Well, if you look at the way they're destroying Gaza, they're not just killing people. They want the people out of there. Obviously, that's clear. They're either going to kill them. I said this earlier, or are they going to, or they are they going to, somebody's going to take them, and no one wants to be part of taking them in because that is a support of what Israel's done. All right, so they clearly want all those every Palestinian out of Gaza. That's clear. They are also doing something very strange, which is unprecedented in warfare. Typically, if you're going to take something over, yeah, you kill people, you bomb some things, but you leave some like working systems, like water system, electricity system, roads, and so on. Now Israel's leveling it, right? And if you haven't seen the most recent pictures, and the Israelis are very sensitive about this, apparently, there were some journalists flying over Gaza taking pictures, and the Israelis freaked out. They're okay with you seeing gutted buildings, they're not okay with you seeing the flat land. Why is that? Because they know something that a lot of people don't know. If you're in the construction business, the first thing you have to do before you lay a foundation is you have to level and remove everything. Okay. What are they going to? Now, here's the $1 million question. Those of you that hung out this long, oh my God, this has been a long one, are going to get a prize because this exists nowhere else. Ready? What are they going to build on Gaza after they've removed all the people and flattened it out? Are they going to build Trump hotels and casinos? I guarantee they are not. Um, you may be aware there is a pretty good size, not the biggest in the world, but a pretty good sized uh, reserves of natural gas in the Eastern Mediterranean. Remember, I said that you can't, it's great to have an oil well, but you better have a relationship with a crude oil transporter and a refinery. Otherwise, your natural gas is worth literally zero, right? I mean, if I told you there's a ton of gold at the center of the earth and it's yours, so what? You can't get to it, right? Um, so that natural gas has to be processed, and you don't process natural gas in a little factory. You need like vast industrial complex. I mean, like vast. There's one of these in Qatar, interestingly enough. There's one of these in Texas. And I believe that's it. Right. So huge. And why do they have it in Qatar? Because they've got the natural gas. Why do they have it in that's why Qatar's rich, by the way, for no other reason. Why do they have it in Texas? Because there's natural gas and there's water, right? So you need two things. You need relatively close proximity to the gas, and you need water. Because what are you going to do? You're going to take that gas out of the ground, you're going to process it, and you're going to put it into liquefied natural gas, right? And you're going to put it in what do you call it? Pipelines, or better, you're going to put in these massive ships. Now, did anybody notice? And the mainstream media didn't notice, and the alternative media didn't notice. ExxonMobil just signed a multi-decade. That's a deal. A multi-decade, multi-billion-dollar deal to do what? To deliver liquefied natural gas to where? Europe. Why? Oops. The Russian pipeline that was supplying Europe with cheap, abundant natural gas is gone. And we've trained our little lapdogs in Europe not to buy energy from Russia. Who benefited from that? Oh, now Russia's not part of the cartel, are they? They've got their own oil, then their own deal. Guess who else isn't part of the cartel? Let's see. Oh, Iran. Oh, we don't like Iran either. Guess who else was part of the non-cartel who was independent? Oh, that little country Iraq. Guess who else was not part of the cartel? Oh yeah, Libya. Guess who else is not part of the cartel? Oh yeah, Venezuela that we're always trying to take over. So if you have oil and you're not within the cartel umbrella, you have been singled out for destruction, right? And in the Middle East, who's been advocating? Who's been like the agitator for that destruction? It's been Israel. But who controls Israel? We control Israel. And who are we? We are the energy banking cartel. Did you see how this works? It's pool. It's like, you hit one ball against that one, you hit that one, and it goes into the hole. And that's how it works. And the reason you do it that way is because you don't want to be personally identified with the crime. Okay. The somehow in the average American's mind, who are unfortunately poorly educated, the atrocity in Gaza is created by Israel. Well, that's not fully accurate. It's a U.S. UK enterprise with the Israelis doing the dirty work, right? It couldn't be clearer. If I'm Mr. Moneybags and I'm sitting in a mansion on a hill and I'm giving guns and weapons to hoodlums to go and murder and terrorize people to enrich me in the long run, who's the master criminal there? Obviously, the people doing the horrific acts are criminals, but don't you think the guy in the mansion on the hill that's sending them guns and weapons and saying it's okay, don't you think he's a little bit involved? And again, who are we? We, unfortunately, are not we. There's the people, but then there's the real we, which is the energy banking cartel. All right, so you following this so far? So there's a big gas field in the Eastern Mediterranean. That gas needs to be processed. Who's going to process it? Houston ain't going to process it. I don't. Was it Houston or Galveston? It's anyway. It's on the Gulf of America. In Texas, right? They're not going to be able to process it. That the economy, can't. How are you going to get the gas? The gas needs to be relatively nearby. Qatar, right? You go through the pipelines, possibly. Maybe ships. I don't know. But you know who's really, 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 really close to that gas field, and who could put up a Houston, we'll call it Houston, Texas-sized or Qatar-sized natural gas complex, processing complex. Ooh, that would be Israel. Now, Israel is a tiny country, is it not? And in the north, you got Haifa, you got Tel Aviv. It's kind of nice, I guess. I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't spit on it, apparently it's not unpleasant. Um, and you typically, if you don't want to put huge industrial complexes right next to your big, fancy, shiny city, right? No one's going to put a major, well, they've done it in the past, but they kind of have done it in a sense. I mean, but you do separate like the New York. It's really weird. Manhattan is separated from the basically Standard Oil massive oil refinery complex in New Jersey, and they're distant. They're distant from each other. You don't put them adjacent, right? So there's really, and Israel's small. It's got a small coastline. Guess what? The best place in the world to put a massive natural gas um, processing complex. It's not a plant. It's not a factory. And you can't, well, I'll tell you how big it is in a second. Guess where the best place in the world to do that would be? Gaza, right? There's no population. I mean, there's the people that have been pushed into Gaza, but other than that little coastline area, the rest of that part of the world is, it's good for herding goats. Not to take anything away from people that herd goats, but that's really all it's good for. And then you got the Sinai, and there's no people until you get to Cairo. So it's like a good spot. Not only is it a perfect spot from a point of view of being close to the gas and also on the water, it's far away from a lot of nice developments. So it's like it is the ideal place in the universe to put a massive natural gas production complex. So let's go back to, if you look at the pictures of Gaza, what are they doing? They're not just trying to fight. Obviously, from day one, only an idiot would think they were fighting Hamas. They were terrorizing, murdering, terror, terrorizing by murdering civilians, right? And then making it impossible for the civilians to live there, right? If there's no hospitals, if there's no bakeries, if all the roads are broken up, if there's no fresh water, if there's no electricity, kind of hard to live somewhere. I don't know how they're surviving. If this happened in America, they, everyone would be dead. These people are tough as nails. The people that are surviving, I am beyond, I can't even fathom how tough they are. And that includes the little kids and the women and the teenage people, boys and girls, and the old people. How they're hanging in, I do not know. But anyway, that was the goal from zero, get those Palestinians out of there. And maybe they knew that the Palestinians weren't going to leave. And that was going to give them cover to bomb and bomb and bomb and bomb and bomb. And now they're doing the thing of just leveling. And remember, if you're going to build something, you got to level the ground first. You got to get rid of all the big rocks and the trees. And if there's a shed there that you don't need or somebody's stupid swimming pool, you just got to get rid of it all, scrape it. And that's what they're doing now. They're scraping it. What are they scraping it for? What are they removing the Palestinians for? To put casinos up? Now maybe Trump is that dumb. I don't know. But they ain't going to be putting no I'm telling you right now. But maybe it could happen. I shouldn't. But it is 1,000 to 1. Like the value of a massive natural gas industrial um, center or whatever you call it versus some casinos and some seaside resorts. I hope everybody understands there's a little bit of difference of economic scale there, and it's not insignificant. So right now, you know, Israel has its own natural gas, right? And the Palestinians have a little bit of natural gas, and the Turks have gas, and Cyprus, they love Cyprus. If you've been following, Zionists are pouring into Cyprus now. Cyprus has gas, right? I imagine Lebanon has gas. It's all got to be processed. And the best place to do it is in Gaza. Okay. Remember, I said when you have stuff in the ground, it's only worth a certain amount. It doesn't become really valuable until it's processed or refined. Right now, Israel's gas goes to, believe it or not, to Egypt, I believe. Is that right? I think so. Um, and they just get a pittance. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's a pittance compared to if you keep it in house and you refine it yourselves or you process it yourselves, right? Because once they're able to do that, now they become what? Not just a consumer of their natural gas, and they have a natural gas pipeline, I think, that goes to Jordan. You now become a international player. You're not quite they don't have quite the gas field. Maybe they do. I mean, what's been reported, it's less than what's in Qatar. It's less than what's in the Gulf of America and in the rest of Texas. But it's significant, and it would convert instead of them getting a pittance for their gas. Now they get the full thing. They get the full value of it. And now, if they put in a port that's geared specifically, which they can't do that out of Haifa. They can't do it out of Tel Aviv. It's already full. You'd have to devastate northern Israel to do this. You could certainly do it on the blank slate of southern Palestine, where Gaza is. So if they put in a port for liquefied natural gas ships, now they can ship to Europe. They could even maybe I don't know if Asia's going to buy anything from them, but they can ship to Europe. And remember, we somebody blew up that pipeline from Russia to Europe. So Europe needs this gas. They need it. They can't live. They're going to die without it. You cut off natural gas for a while, reduce it or make it hard to get in Northern Europe. And Northern Europe's, not Northern Europe anymore. It's a disaster zone. I mean, just think about this. If you control the energy supply to a country or a region or a town or state or whatever, um, you can devastate a place without dropping a bomb. Just just turn off the spigot and the devastation will begin, right? So there's even more to this story. Not only do the Israelis make, or let's put it this way, whoever owns that complex right? Maybe Israel is being wiped out for the reason of somebody else owning that piece of land someday. I don't know. I can't see that far ahead. But what I can tell you is if they put in a Qatar level or Texas level natural gas processing complex, it's going to be a massive moneymaker. But there's more to the story. That gas can also be used to do what? It can be used to produce chemicals. So you can have chemical plants there. So if you're close to the gas, a lot of things become, and you get it, and you're getting it cheap because it's your gas. A lot of things become possible that are not otherwise possible. Chemical plants. And, we don't see chemical plants, unless you're unfortunate and live near one, but they're big. And everything you see in your house, probably, unless it's wood or metal, it probably originated in a chemical plant. And that's one of the things that you can make from natural gas. And you can also fuel the process of making chemicals. And chemicals is a huge, huge, it's called, the petrochemical industry, right? Barrel of oil is like this, right? And only this much is for gasoline. A bunch of it's for fertilizer. A bunch of it's for chemicals. And these are the high value stuff. Gasoline's like the almost like the second thought. They always talk about there's a guy, you know, um, the oil companies ripping us off at the pump. Yeah, absolutely. But their real money comes from the fertilizer and the chemicals and even some of the high end pharmaceutical packaging stuff. It's not like the capsules and all that kind of stuff. Um, that's at like 1,000 to 1. You convert that from crude to something you can sell, and it's like it's better. It's on the level of cocaine, right? If you can somehow get a kilo of cocaine in the jungle of Colombia, you probably get it for $10. I don't know what it's called, $100. You get that on the streets of L.A. and now it's worth I don't know what these things are worth anymore, but it's like 1,000-fold increase. That is what certain elements of crude and gas are when you convert them to other uses. It's not just gasoline in our cars. So not only would the whoever owns that, and I'm going to keep saying whoever owns it because it's not clear who's going to own it. Well, we know, but here's the thing: we know who's going to fund it. It ain't going to be Israel. It's going to be the banks associated with who? Well, you know that Chase Manhattan, Citibank, J.P. Morgan. These are all Rockefeller descendants, right, from that cartel, and then Rothschild banks. So not only is there a gazillion dollars to be made by whoever it is that builds that plant, that complex in Gaza, to take in all that gas that's in the Eastern Mediterranean. Because remember, it's worthless unless it's processed. Not only are those guys going to make money, but all the allied industries that are going to spring up, the fertilizer companies, the chemical companies, the data centers, the AI data centers. What's if you're knowledgeable, you can't have an AI data center without a lot of energy. Where does the energy come from? Well, it's really helpful to be near a gas source, a cheap natural gas source. So that could be a business. And then, I mean, it's going to be a moneymaker of epic proportions. Okay. But guess who's going to make the most money overall? The people that finance it, right? They've got, and the big challenge with having a ton of money is like, where do we put it? They're always looking where can we put $100 billion? Or I think I priced out what it would cost to build a major league um, natural gas complex, and it's between like 20 and $30 billion. It's probably gonna be a lot more, right? But that's kind of the ballpark. So when you've got that kind of money, where do you put it? It's a problem. I know it doesn't seem like it makes sense that having money could be a problem, but it's a problem. So you need big projects. So here's this big, beautiful coastline. We just have to get rid of the people and we just have to level everything that they built. And now we can, after a few years have passed, mark my words, after a few years have passed, now someone will float the idea of a big natural gas complex in that hollowed out place that used to be Gaza. And the bankers are going to get rich, and the construction companies, and who's going to build that thing? That's high level stuff. That's US, that's UK, that's French people. right? They're not going to give that work to China, right? So the construction people are going to get rich. The gas people are going to get rich. The people running the plants are going to get rich. All the ancillary thing. It's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar money pump, right? And then let's look at how it's being set up. We've got this puppet over here doing horrific things to the people of Gaza. We have this puppet over here making sure that this puppet has all the weapons it needs every day because it's a daily occurrence to do the dirty work. And everyone's going to be looking at this puppet as they should. They're not going to really think too much about this puppet. And they're not going to realize the main puppet who really has run our government since the days of Standard Oil is behind it all. Because we live in a world, it's a very pleasant world materially, that is 100% dependent on fossil fuels. It just is. And all the windmills and all the solar panels and all the wishful thinking in the world is not going to change that this week, this month, this year, this decade, maybe this century. And bottom line, we always have to remember they rule us, we don't rule them. They rule our government, which in turn pushes us around, and they in turn are pushed around. And now think how brilliant they are because no one's ever laid this out for you. People have a vague sense, oh yeah, the oil companies are bad, and blah, blah. Nobody realizes that it's very likely that the oil banking cartel is actually well. I mean, who controls the U.S. government? We say that the Zionists do, but do you realize that all we have to do is enforce the law, right? Remember, and I got a book on it. It's called JFK and RFK: Secret Battle Against Zionist Extremism. There are laws that could shut down the corruption of Congress by Zionist money. It could happen tomorrow. People could be going to jail as they should. In fact, there is a guy, a senator, I believe, or a congressman in New Jersey. They're putting him in jail. He's 70 something years old. He's going to jail because why? He took money from Egypt, but he also took money from Israel, but they're not prosecuting him for that. Everyone, let me just back up. Everybody in our Congress, with the small exceptions, could all be in handcuffs on their way to jail tomorrow if U.S. law were to be actually enforced. It's not being enforced. So even when you say it's the Zionist money, which is true, that's corrupted the U.S. Congress, which is true, who's allowing it? Our government's allowing it. Who's our government? It's not these jokers in Washington or in the state capitals. They're just professional white collar grifters. It's the oil companies that really and pharma, by the way, is sort of a branch of that cartel. It's all banking, chemical, energy, um, pharma, defense, right, and massive construction. That's who rules. That's the reality. And and I'm gonna get all these leftist guys. God bless them. I like some of them. They're always talking about capitalism. It's a lot worse than capitalism, guys. It's not capitalism that's the problem. If you don't name the specific parts of the beast, just saying it's a beast, yeah, we get it, it's a beast. But how does the beast work? Because if you don't know how the beast works, how do you dismantle it? You can't. So watch. I mean, really, watch the next 10,000 hours of alternative news, and watch all the leftists, and watch all the conservatives, and watch all these people, and nobody's going to get to these basic points. So that's why I'm doing a call today, because I just want to get this off my chest. And I'm going back to work. I'm going to finish my book. It's called Diabolical Error: the Strange and Unsettling History of Vaccine Science. And here's a spoiler alert: there is no science. There never was any science. I'm looking. I went in with an open mind. I'm like, okay, they say there's science. Let's see where they give us all these milestones. We had the smallpox, cowpox with Jenner, and then we had George Washington inoculating all the troops, and then we had the great Louis Pasteur, and then we had, you know, um, polio vaccine, and all these amazing things have happened, and they're all based in science. Ain't no science anywhere. What there is phenomenal world class PR, not just any old PR. Like the literally The very best PR people who've ever lived have been hired guns to sell the idea that vaccines are safe and effective and necessary. There's no science, but there's a massive public relations input into this, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody. Like, didn't we just go through COVID? Was there any science there? This is I find funny. It's like there are people that get that COVID was total bullshit, but they still think, oh yeah, there's something good about vaccines. Maybe there is. I'm looking. I've been looking. I can't find it. It seems like everything is just COVID. Everything is a COVID show. Massive fear. Here's the formula: generate massive fear, make people sweat, work for the cure, and then when the cure finally comes out, unscientific, toxic as it is, people will just jump on it and thank you. They'll thank you for it. It wasn't just COVID, guys. It was polio. And it goes all the way back to the very first vaccine. How many people know what the very first vaccine was and who delivered it? The first injectable. I didn't know. I'm well informed. I didn't know. That was Pasteur. And when you read how that great breakthrough and milestone in human history and medical science went down, you will not believe your eyes. And I'm wondering, having consumed hundreds of books on corruption in the medical world, that I've never just heard this basic story. And it's not just that story. Every single milestone in the history of vaccine science is based on no science, complete fraud, and world class PR. And using that 4-step method I described, tell them they're going to die, tell them the cure is coming, make them sweat. And then when the cure comes, the so called cure comes, everybody just runs and flocks to it. So we went down a long road here. I haven't spoken to you all in a while because writing a book's hard work, man. I'm not going to complain, but it's like building a house by yourself. Though I do have one great helper, um, but still, it's hard. It's taking time, but it's going to be. I'm reading it. We're just going over parts one and parts two. And by the way, part one, if you want to support Brass Check, $10, you get a PDF of part one right now. I'm also going to say, because some people like to do more, you can have a signed physical copy from yours truly. I'll mail it to you. I'll describe it to anybody you want me to. You got to tell me who. Um, and that's $100. That's for $100. Someone's got to. I got to pay the guy that helps me. I work for free, but I can't ask other people to work for free. And this book is going to be. I think it's going to be a major game changer because I'm telling you, even the most die-hard, I love vaccines person, if they actually read this thing, which they probably won't, but if they read it, it's going to scramble their brain because they're going to realize that there ain't nothing there but fraud. And there's never been anything there but fraud. So anyway, the book is called Despicable Error. It's based on the quote by St. Augustine, which is, to err is human, which it is. We make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But to persist in error, that's the rest of the quote, is diabolical. And yeah, you make a mistake. All right. So you stop doing what you're doing. You make amends if amends needs to be made. But if you're doing that same thing tomorrow, now you're despicable. And so that applies to Israel. It applies to the US and the UK and all the other idiots that are helping, making it possible for Israel to do it. And it applies to our Congress, who's nothing but criminals. And it applies to the people that control those criminals, and that would be the big banking, energy, pharma, defense, media cartel. All right, Brass Check. I don't know when you'll see me again next. By the way, if you think that doing what we do is a blood-free game, um, I got a wake-up call when I saw Charlie Kirk get shot. Um, that believe me, that makes everybody that does this think twice. But they can only kill you once, and luckily nobody gives any credence to anything I say. So I don't think I have to worry too much.